There's nothing more familiar, more comforting than the voice of someone you love calling your name. But what if the voice wasn't theirs? What if the smile you see in the dark doesn't belong to the person you trust, but to something else? Something that learned how to sound like them, how to move like them, just enough to fool you. These are not ghosts. These are not dreams. These are things that wear the faces of those you love most, waiting for you to believe. So they can pull you closer. Story 1. The Voice in the Basement. It was supposed to be just another quiet Saturday afternoon. My parents had gone out shopping, and I had the entire house to myself. A rare gift for a 17-year-old who craved silence after a stressful week of exams. The air smelled faintly of laundry detergent and coffee, and the rain outside tapped against the windows in a steady rhythm. I settled onto the couch with my headphones on, trying to drown myself in music, when I heard it. Ethan. The voice was faint but clear. My name, spoken softly, like a whisper cutting through the melody. I pulled my headphones down and listened. The house was silent except for the rain. I told myself it was nothing, maybe part of the song bleeding through weirdly, but then I heard it again. Ethan? Come down here, honey. It was my mom's voice, calm, warm, the exact tone she used whenever she needed me to fetch something. I frowned, glancing at the clock. 3:12 p.m. My parents wouldn't be home for another hour at least. I knew that because they'd texted me before leaving. They were at the big supermarket 2 towns over. Still, the voice sounded so real that for a moment I questioned myself. Maybe they came back early? I stood up slowly, listening harder. The voice came again, a little louder this time, carrying a subtle echo. I need your help with something. Just come downstairs for a second. Downstairs. The basement. My stomach twisted. I moved to the basement door, which stood at the far end of the hallway near the kitchen. It was closed, as always. We didn't use the basement much, just for storage and old boxes my dad never bothered to unpack from our last move. The door looked ordinary, a white wooden panel with a brass knob, but something about it seemed wrong now, like it was breathing. I gripped the knob. It was cold. Mom? I called, my voice shaky. You're home? No answer at first, just the rain. And then, yes, honey, come down, I need you. That voice, it wasn't just similar, it was perfect. Every cadence, every syllable. It was my mother. But then I saw her shoes. They were sitting neatly by the front door, just like when she'd left earlier. The black flats she always wore to go shopping. My blood ran cold. I took a step back from the basement door. My throat felt tight, and my skin prickled with goosebumps. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run outside, to lock the door and never come back. But curiosity, damn curiosity, kept me rooted. I turned the knob slowly and opened the basement door. It creaked on its hinges, releasing a waft of cold, damp air. The stairs descended into darkness, the bottom shrouded in shadow. I hesitated at the top step, gripping the railing, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. That's when the voice came again, this time softer, almost tender. Please hurry, Ethan. I can't do this without you. My mouth went dry. I took one step down. The wood groaned under my weight, another step, and another. Halfway down, I froze. The air was wrong, too still, too heavy. Like the basement wasn't just dark, it was empty in a way that swallowed sound. And then I noticed something. There was no light coming from below, no flicker, no glow, nothing. My mom hated the dark. She never went anywhere without turning on a light first. I tightened my grip on the railing and leaned forward, peering into the blackness. My flashlight was upstairs in my room, and I cursed myself for not grabbing it. That's when something moved. Just a flicker at the edge of the dark, like a shadow detaching itself from deeper shadow. And then the voice came again, but closer now. Too close. Why are you stopping? I stumbled back a step, my heart slamming against my ribs. It didn't sound like my mom anymore. Not completely. The tone was right, but there was something underneath. Something hollow and stretched, like a recording played through broken speakers. Come down, Ethan. The last word cracked like static. I turned and bolted up the stairs, slamming the door shut so hard the frame rattled. I locked it, shoved the kitchen chair under the knob, and stumbled back, gasping for breath. For a moment, everything was quiet, just the sound of rain on the roof and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then, the doorknob started to turn, slowly, gently, like someone on the other side was testing it. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. My knees shook so badly I thought I'd collapse. The turning stopped. Silence stretched thin and brittle. I started to hope maybe it was gone. Maybe I'd imagined everything. Then the voice came one last time, but it wasn't pretending anymore. It was low, guttural, words grinding together like teeth. You shouldn't have opened the door. The knob stilled. The sound faded. When my parents got home an hour later, I was still crouched in the corner of the kitchen, white as a sheet. They laughed when I told them, said it was probably the wind or the house settling. But I know what I heard. I never go near the basement now. I keep the door locked, always, and there's a heavy dresser pushed against it. But sometimes, late at night, I hear faint tapping from the other side. And sometimes, if I'm unlucky, I hear my mother's voice again, calling me by name. Story 2. Grandma at the Window. The night my grandmother came back was one of those heavy, sleepless nights where the air feels too still, too thick to breathe. I was 17, and the grief of losing her 2 weeks earlier still clung to the walls of our house like dust we couldn't sweep away. Grandma had lived with us since I was little, her laugh filling every corner, her humming drifting through the hallways, the smell of lavender always lingering where she'd been. And then, one morning, she was gone. A stroke in her sleep, the doctor said. Peaceful. Quick. We buried her in her favorite blue nightgown because that's what she always said she wanted. I stood at her casket, staring at that faint smile on her pale face, trying to memorize every detail. I thought I'd never see her again. I was wrong. It was exactly 3:17 a.m. when I woke up. I don't know why. Maybe the silence. Our house was never this quiet. No creaks, no hum from the refrigerator, no distant cars on the road. Just a stillness that felt unnatural. Then I heard it, a soft tapping. At first, I thought it was a tree branch against the glass, but there were no trees close to my second-floor window. The tapping came again, 3 slow taps like fingernails on glass. My stomach knotted. I turned my head toward the window, heart thudding in my ears. And that's when I saw her. Grandma, standing outside my bedroom window. She was smiling, the same gentle smile I'd seen every day of my life. Her silver hair hung loose over her shoulders, and she wore the same blue nightgown we buried her in. For a second, just 1 second, relief flooded me, so strong it made me dizzy. Grandma? I whispered, my voice cracking. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there in the moonlight, her face pale and perfect, her lips stretched into that familiar smile. The tapping started again. Her fingers, thin, frail, pow. The fingers I'd held so many times were rapping softly against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I scrambled out of bed, my breath quick and shallow. I pressed my palms to the window, staring at her. Grandma, how? How are you? Then I stopped. The smile, it hadn't changed. Not even a twitch. Too wide now, too fixed. And her eyes weren't right. They glowed faintly in the dark. And then, without her lips moving, I heard her voice. Clear. Sweet. Inside my head. Let me in, sweetheart. I stumbled back so fast I nearly tripped over my own feet. Her mouth stayed frozen in that smile, but her voice kept flowing, soft as silk, curling into my ears like smoke. It's cold out here. Please. Just open the window. Let Grandma in. I shook my head hard, my hands trembling. You're dead. The glow in her eyes brightened, and for the first time her face moved, her head tilted, slow and unnatural, like a puppet on the end of a fraying string. Does that matter? Her voice was sharper now, slicing through my thoughts like glass. I wanted to scream, wanted to run to my parents' room. But I couldn't move. My legs felt rooted to the carpet. All I could do was watch as she lifted her hand, no longer frail and wrinkled, but gray, stretched and too long, and pressed it flat against the glass. The window fogged beneath her touch. And in the condensation, words began to form, traced by an invisible hand. Let me in. Over and over. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. The tapping grew louder, harder. Her smile didn't fade. Her glowing eyes never blinked. And that voice, oh God, that voice, kept whispering inside my head, faster now, overlapping, urgent. Let me in. Let me in. Let me in. I screamed and threw myself backward onto the bed. My phone was on the nightstand. I grabbed it with shaking hands and dialed 911, babbling nonsense about someone at my window. When I looked back, she was gone. Just an empty window. No tapping. No fog. By the time the police arrived, I was a wreck. They checked the yard, the side of the house. Nothing. No footprints in the mud, no sign anyone had been there. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. The next morning, when the sun finally rose, I crept to the window, praying it had all been some twisted dream. There was nothing outside, just wet grass and gray sky. But on the glass, faint and smeared, like someone had dragged a finger through steam, was a single word, soon. I never slept in that room again. We moved 6 months later, but some nights I still wake up at 3:17 a.m., heart hammering, certain I'll hear that soft tapping on the glass again. And sometimes, in the silence, I swear I still hear her voice. Sweetheart, let me in. Story 3, my brother upstairs. It was past midnight when I first heard him. Sam? The voice floated down from above, faint but urgent. Can you come up here? I froze, my hand tightening around the TV remote. My little brother Dylan wasn't supposed to be awake. Mom and Dad were out of town for the weekend, leaving me in charge, something I wasn't thrilled about, but Dylan was a good kid, quiet, always in bed by 9. But now, at 12:43 a.m., his voice was calling from the attic. Not his room, not the bathroom, the attic. I stared at the ceiling, confused. We never went up there. It wasn't a finished space, just a dusty crawl area filled with boxes and insulation. Dylan knew he wasn't allowed to mess around in it. Sam, please come up. The tone was sharp this time, panicked, like he was in trouble. I stood slowly, every nerve in my body buzzing. Dylan, I called. What are you doing up there? No answer, just the faint sound of something shifting above me, like a box being dragged. I grabbed the flashlight from the drawer and headed upstairs. The hallway was dim, the only light spilling from the nightlight in Dylan's room. I peeked in as I passed. His bed was empty. The sheets were twisted, the blanket half on the floor. Dylan! My voice cracked. Another sound above me, a dull thud, like something bumping the rafters. I stood under the attic hatch, my heart pounding. The wooden square in the ceiling looked darker than usual, like a black hole waiting to swallow me. Sam? His voice again, soft, almost pleading. I need your help. My mouth went dry. Why are you up there? No response, just the creak of weight shifting on old wood. I grabbed the pull cord and yanked. The hatch opened with a groan, and the foldable ladder dropped down, shuddering as it hit the floor. A gust of stale, cold air spilled out. I shined my flashlight into the hole. The beam cut through dust and darkness, revealing nothing but boxes and insulation. Dylan? I called, my voice trembling. Up here, he said. His voice sounded farther back, like he'd crawled deep into the attic. Please, hurry. Something in me screamed not to go up there. Everything about this was wrong. Dylan hated the attic. He was afraid of spiders, and the attic was full of them. He wouldn't come up here on his own, unless someone or something made him. I hesitated at the base of the ladder, gripping the sides so hard my knuckles turned white. Sam, his voice again, softer now, almost like a whisper curling through the rafters. Don't leave me. I climbed, slowly. Each step groaned under my weight. My flashlight beam jittered across boxes, old suitcases, Christmas decorations buried in dust. The attic smelled stale and heavy, like a place that had been closed for years. Dylan? My voice cracked. Over here. I swung the flashlight toward the sound. Something moved, just a flicker in the corner of the beam, like a shadow slipping between boxes. I crawled deeper, my knees sinking into the itchy insulation. Where are you? No answer, just silence. Then, soft laughter. I whipped the flashlight toward it. The beam trembled in my shaking hands, bouncing across the rafters. Nothing. Dylan! I shouted. My voice echoed weirdly in the cramped space, like the attic was swallowing the sound. And then, behind me, Sam? I spun so fast I nearly dropped the flashlight. The beam landed on the hatch I'd climbed through. The ladder was gone, just a black square where the opening used to be. No. My breath hitched. I scrambled forward, digging through insulation, tearing at boxes, but the hatch wasn't there anymore. Just endless wood planks stretching into darkness. The laughter came again, louder now, higher, not Dylan's laugh. Stop it, I screamed, tears stinging my eyes. A shadow moved at the edge of the beam. I swung the light toward it and froze. Something was standing between the rafters. Tall, too tall. Its head bent forward at an impossible angle, its limbs stretched too long. And its face, it wore Dylan's face. But wrong. The smile was too wide, carved into its skin like a wound. The eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the beam like an animal in the dark. It tilted its head, and the laugh spilled out again, but the mouth didn't move. The sound came from everywhere at once, curling around me like smoke. Don't go, Sam. The voice was Dylan's. Perfect. Sweet. I scrambled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight, my heart slamming so hard I thought my chest would burst. The thing stepped closer, its limbs bending the wrong way, its head twitching like a broken puppet. Stay with me. I turned and ran, crawling through boxes, tearing through insulation, splinters digging into my hands. I didn't care. I just had to get away. Behind me, I heard the wood creak under its weight. Fast. Too fast. I swung the flashlight wildly, searching for the hatch, for any way out. And then, I saw it. The opening. Just ahead. The ladder dangling like it never moved. I didn't question it. I threw myself through the hole, hitting the floor hard. Pain shot through my arm, but I didn't stop. I slammed the hatch shut and locked it, chest heaving, sweat pouring down my face. For a long time, I just sat there on the hallway floor, listening. Silence. Then, one sound, a slow, deliberate tap from the other side of the hatch. I slept in the living room with every light on until my parents came home the next day. I told them Dylan had a nightmare, and I needed to stay close. They believed me. But Dylan, he never woke up that night. He stayed in bed the whole time, and sometimes late at night, when the house is quiet, I hear it again, from above, that soft, sweet voice. Sam, come back up. Story 4, The Wrong Wife. It was just after dawn when I pulled into the driveway, the pale glow of sunrise barely breaking through the mist. My body ached from the 12-hour night shift at the factory, and all I could think about was crawling into bed beside my wife, Claire. The house was quiet as I slipped inside. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, rich and warm, and I smiled despite my exhaustion. Claire always woke up early. Even on weekends, she was the kind of woman who needed the day to feel productive. I tossed my keys onto the counter and called out softly, "Morning, babe." Her voice floated back, gentle and familiar. "Good morning." I followed the sound, padding toward the kitchen. She was standing at the counter with her back to me, her long brown hair spilling over her shoulders, the same white robe she always wore cinched at the waist. A coffee pot rested in her hands, steam curling upward. For a moment, I just stood there, drinking in the quiet domesticity. After years of marriage, those little moments still felt comforting. Safe. "You're up early," I said, pulling out a chair at the table. "Thought you'd sleep in." She chuckled softly, that low melodic laugh I'd fallen in love with. "Couldn't sleep. Wanted to make you something before bed." I grinned. "You're too good to me." She didn't answer, just kept standing there, her back still turned. I frowned. "Everything okay?" That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. "Claire, running late, just left work. Be home soon. Love you." The blood in my veins turned to ice. My thumb hovered over the message, reading it again and again as if my eyes were playing tricks on me. Slowly, I lifted my gaze to the woman at the counter. She was still standing there, still holding the coffee pot. "Claire?" My voice cracked. Her head tilted slightly at the sound, just a fraction too far, like the movement of a doll. Then, slowly, she began to turn. My breath caught in my throat. Her face was Claire's. Every detail perfect, the curve of her cheekbones, the soft pink of her lips, the green flecks in her eyes. But the smile was wrong. Too wide, stretched almost to her ears. And her eyes, oh God, her eyes didn't blink. Not once. "Coffee's ready," she said. Her voice was Claire's voice, warm and sweet. But something underneath, something hollow scraped against the edges of the words, like static on a broken radio. I stood frozen as she lifted the coffee pot, tilting it toward a mug on the counter. The steaming liquid poured over the rim, then kept pouring. Onto her hand. Boiling coffee splashed across her pale skin, running down her wrist, dripping onto the floor. The smell of burnt flesh filled the air. She didn't flinch. She didn't even stop smiling. "Claire," I whispered, my legs trembling so badly I could barely stand. "What the hell?" The coffee pot clattered to the floor, shattering into pieces. Dark liquid spread across the tiles like blood. She stepped toward me. Barefoot, her robe trailing, soaked with coffee, her skin blistered and peeling from the burns. But she didn't stop smiling. "You're home," she whispered. I stumbled backward, slamming into the table so hard it rattled. My phone slipped from my hands and skittered across the floor. I didn't dare take my eyes off her as she crossed the kitchen, her movements jerky, like a marionette with tangled strings. Her head twitched as she tilted it too far to one side. A wet pop echoed through the room as something in her neck shifted. "Stay," she said softly. "Don't leave me." I bolted. I ran for the front door, my socks sliding on the coffee-slick tiles. I grabbed the knob and yanked. Locked. It was never locked. We never locked it when I was home. I spun around just in time to see her stepping out of the kitchen, her bare feet slapping wet against the hardwood. Her smile was wider now, unnaturally wide, splitting her cheeks until they bled. "You can't go," she whispered, her voice splintering into something inhuman. I grabbed the nearest thing, a heavy lamp, and hurled it. It smashed into her shoulder, but she didn't even flinch. Just kept coming, her eyes burning with something that wasn't human hunger, but something worse. I ran for the back door, unlocked. Thank God. I didn't look back. I tore across the yard, into the street, barefoot and shaking. I didn't stop running until I saw headlights and flagged down a passing car. The cops searched the house, found nothing. No broken coffee pot, no spilled liquid, no footprints. And Claire? She swears she never came home that morning. She even showed me security footage from her office. She was there the entire time. But when I finally went back inside, everything looked normal. Too normal, except for one thing. On the kitchen counter, there was a coffee mug, full, still steaming, and written in the foam in delicate swirling letters was one word, "Stay." I smashed the cup and threw it away, but that smell of burnt flesh never really left the house. And sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I see her standing in the kitchen doorway, smiling that same impossible smile. And I wonder if the woman I crawl back into bed with is really my wife. They sound like the people you love. They wear their faces, their voices, their warmth like a mask. But they're not them. They never were. And once you let them in, once you answer that call, open that door, smile back, it's already too late. Next time you hear someone familiar calling your name from the dark, think twice before you go. Because some things don't want to hurt you. They want to become you.